Boing. Hey-yo.
Why did you let her escape? What is your alibi this time, nitwit?
This is slightly skipped time, so this isn't actually a complete hookup. This is just a different shot of her. But I really liked how we're changing up. We're getting like a nice S shape in her body. So this is more for mechanics, this shot. We're leading with the root, and to keep her on balance, because we're distributing her weight now. So what we need to do is, as I lean forward, if I was, let's say I stand up now, as I lean forward, can you see how my root, my pelvis, goes backwards? And that's what keeps me on balance. If I just went forward, I would fall into the wall because I need to distribute my weight, because as I stand up, my upper half is completely flat, so there's no distribution. Whereas when I lean, I need to distribute my weight evenly from my legs, so that way it keeps you on balance. And then once the body is finished settling, then it rotates, then it continues to rotate and follow through. I love this. For some reason, I love this pose where she's still got her hand resting on the surface. It's great. And then she pulls up, and you can see there's some like nice dragging on the hair. And now she's leading with her spine again to lean back up, and the hand is dragging because it's going to grab an object. We've exaggerated with the spine. Now the spine is easing in, and the arm is now taking on that force, and it's following through the action, where the forearm is still straight. The arm begins to settle, and the forearm is catching up. So it's a distribution of weight going through the body. If I want to pull, I need to pull with my spine first, and then I can catch up. So you get this action. And now the hips are going forward because the spine's going backwards, so she needs to pull that weight forward in order to swing herself upwards. Again, getting these really clear gestures to catch. And then there's a step here. Because she's about to step to the side, most of her weight is hanging on this leg right now, on this foot. So the weight stays on the screen left side. And then once the foot's made contact, then that's when she can travel to the right. And again, really feeling that hang time in the air. So we got a hang time here on that spacing, and then boop, get the impact where it just hits, and there's still a slight overlap on the surface of the suitcase, because the force is driving from this side of the suitcase, so it's going to flap down on the other. It's going to overlap on the other side. And you see how you got a nice C curve in the spine, and then it alternates. So I like how after she's made that impact, her body now follows through again. So she's slammed, and now there's so much momentum that she's thrown herself forwards again. See how it's really exaggerated the arm stretch there. Which, to be honest, when you play it back in real time, you don't really feel that. I really like how the body twists in the root, and then it follows through in the chest. So can you see, if we were to follow the rotation of the body here on the root as it swings around, and then it kind of hangs here, we get the same in the chest, but it hangs back. And then it comes round. So we have Medusa, we have the suitcase, we have Bianca in the bottom right, and then we have the coat. So we've got this nice unison throughout the entire composition here. So she's going to have this arm reach out, take the coat, and then she's going to close the suitcase, and then we have Bianca looking at all three. So we have this nice composition which kind of flows throughout everything, which is really great. So your eye is guided every single position, and you know where to look. Nothing's going to be overcomplicated. We have this really nice flowing line going through the back of the body, and then we have, again, simple shapes in the hair, and then we have this really nice complex little spurs in the other side of the face, on the hair, sorry, and then we have the gesture on the hand which goes out, and then we get all these complex lines on the other side, and it almost also complements into the shapes of the suitcase as well. And then because her chest is compressing on one side, so if we have a look, we almost get this angle in the chest and then this angle in the hips, and because that stretches out on the screen left side, we get these nice compressions, these nice wrinkles in her dress on the other side to show that we're getting that compression in volume. One thing that we're taught to use arcs, right, in our animation. So a lot of the time, naturally you are going to produce arcs, but if you're going to punch something, for example, there may be an arc, but it's going to be a lot straighter than, say, if I were to wave. So obviously that's got a lot of arcs to it, right? But if I was going to grab something with intention, I'm just going straight towards something. So there may be a slight arc because of the way I reach out. You could, if I wanted to, just go completely linearly, right? I could go direct. And so because she's reaching out to something here and she has intention, she's got a purpose. So if I had, say, this pen and I was going to reach out to it, I'm not going to go over, am I? I just want to get the pen. So the most efficient way for me to do that is to go directly. So when we're taught to use arcs, one thing that you can think about is, what is the intention behind this movement, and does that even require arcs? Maybe it doesn't. You may add a tiny arc just so it's not completely straight, but it depends on the context. As the chest is going screen right, the head is going screen left, so you get opposing action slightly, and then it hangs for a second, which is quite nice. And then you get a slight anticipation, almost like an anticipation with the hand, where it's come from a slightly more curled, and then it goes into a more flat straight. And another thing, it's very subtle, but he still thought about the connection in balance. So if we just follow the hip line here, do you see how that pushes out screen left? Now this is our overshoot, and this is a great overshoot. Look how pushed that pose is. Can you see how direct that line feeds through the entire body, and it almost goes straight into a triangle? See, there's a little arc in there, so if we track the hand here, you see that? There's a little scoop. So he's going forward, then there's a little dip down, and then he scoops up. So then we get that, we're still creating arcs where we can. So now he's producing a nice line that flows through. Can you see that it almost flows through the chest of drawers, side panel as well? It's got this a really nice flow. I'll just put in here flow. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw curves in the coat, and this is going to be a perfect example of how you can treat this like a spine if you wanted to add a big change or something's flowing or feeling heavy, and it's just the lower half of the coat that's catching up. Does that make sense? And it still has a nice weight to it, so it still has the follow through, but then it flops down, and it has a feeling, the way it's spaced out has a nice feeling to it. So let's bring that back. So it still has a nice flow. So he's anticipated up, so he's opened up space in the coat in order for this arm to feed around. Does that make sense? So he's bringing it up, opens it up, and then he can push the arm through. And then so you got the connection there, the arm feeding through. And then once the arm's through, then he can let go with this hand. Cool. So we get a nice overshoot of the spine as well. You can kind of see how the spine and the shoulder, now the chest, is connecting and it's pushing up through that shoulder. And then we're still getting a nice like contraposter kind of feeling in the body where we're compressing down in this direction. So it's a pretty interesting mechanic because he's just about caught the spacing on the hand to reach around to direct your like the energy and the flow to go into that just in time into the other part of the coat. I like how her head is connecting to where she's putting her arm in. She's not looking, but her chest and her head is still twisting round as she feeds her arm through, so that you feel the connection as she's trying to reach around. So now we're leading with the shoulders, and you get this really nice like graphic shape up the top, and there's a slight overlap on the forearms. It's almost like a bird, and it almost feels like it's funneling inwards. So you're getting again that sense of stretch. There's almost like a subtle stretch. And then this is the extreme where the arms are now flourishing up. So the shoulders have hit their apex. And you're getting a nice dragging feeling in the sleeves. So we're still getting a nice overlap in the hands here. And then boom. So there's now, you can see the hands flourish. You see that spacing? So everything's hit and then the hands finish last. So then you feel that. And then now again we're still leading with the elbows going down. And I love now everything feels like it kind of feeds through. But can you still see we get these nice graphic shapes where it's not completely symmetrical. There's still kind of like a almost funneled feeling in there. It almost feels like a hat.
Why did you let her escape? What is your alibi this time, nitwit?
He almost uses offbeats sometimes. And that's what I find really interesting. The thing that I'm learning most while I'm studying Milk Carl is he doesn't always hit things on the beat. I mentioned this last time, but I've just got it into my head that when I hear someone say something, that's when the beat should happen. Whereas it doesn't always have to happen as you say it. Like, if I was gonna say, oh, that's amazing. Like, that's how I'm used to animating. You hear the A, and that's where the accent is. And so you naturally hit the action on the accent. Whereas the way he uses gestures in limbs and legs, he actually sometimes hits it off the beat, but still may have an accent in the face, because that's where the actual projection is coming in from. It, of course, is her expression and what she's physically saying through her mouth. So the accent can still hit there to connect it, but the limbs don't have to hit at the same point. So instead of saying, that's amazing, it could be, that's amazing. So I might write in, like, say the top left corner, accent, beat, and you can see where he's added those beats.
Did you let her escape? What is your alibi this time, nitwit?
Especially on the nitwit, where you see the foot hits the beat before the sound.
Alibi this time, nitwit?
And I think that feels much more natural than going nitwit, and then the wit of the body is also where the face hits, so you don't know where to look. You're not reading the expression on her face because the broad action is happening at the same time. So by having it come first and then, so it's like nitwit. A beat is where you have the most contrast. So if I'm going to go action, there is where the beat hits. So I can go bum, 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 and that's my beat or my rhythm. The accent is what I'm referring to as the dialogue. How dare you? Then the duh, those where you hear the loudest sound is the accent.